Good morning. I'm House Minority Leader Tony McCombie here with my colleagues today to talk about everybody's favorite word, affordability. This isn't a new concept for us. House Republicans have been long focused on reining in spending, providing real tax relief for hardworking families, and creating opportunities for growth. What is new is hearing the House Democrats talk about affordability. Here's the problem. You can't have affordability without accountability. In one breath, they talk about lowering cost. In the next, they pass expensive, damaging policies that hit Illinois families, hurt employers, and limit growth. During the last two sessions, just a few months ago, Democrats authorized billions of dollars in new spending in just 2 days, but guess what wasn't included? Any meaningful reforms for taxpayers. Just this week, Speaker Welch called the transit reform an affordability measure. I wouldn't call spending $2.5 billion affordable, especially when it comes with no transparency and, again, no accountability. If Democrats were serious about real affordability, they wouldn't be focused on growing government revenue through higher taxes. They would be focused on growing Illinois' tax base. That means taking a holistic approach to tax reform, lowering our corporate income tax, creating a more competitive business climate, and encouraging employers to invest, hire, and grow here in Illinois. That's more jobs, more opportunity, and more people staying here and not leaving. And if they were serious about affordability, they would act now by passing policies that actually put money back in people's pockets. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, relief on car loan interest, and education tax credits for families. When Illinois already carries one of the highest tax burdens in the nation, affordability cannot be a political buzzword. It has to be backed by responsible budgeting, smart tax policy, and honest management. As a minority party, our job is to be the check on one-party rule, to demand accountability in spending, budgeting, and how every tax dollar is managed. Now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Assistant Republican Leader Amy Ellick, who is also one of our budgeteers.
Thank you. Good morning, I'm Amy Ellick, and I represent the 111th District in the Metro East. As Leader McCombie highlighted, Illinois is in serious trouble because of poor decisions made by those in power. Those decisions have driven families and businesses out of our state in search of lower taxes and greater opportunity. We see it every day in our border districts. People know that they can move just across the river and pay less for gas, groceries, and property taxes, and many are making that choice. In Missouri, lawmakers are even working toward eliminating the state income tax by identifying responsible budget cuts. That's what leadership looks like. In contrast, the people in power in Illinois thirst for more revenue and will do everything they can to get it. Even though our residents are already among the highest taxed in the nation, the Democrat majority continues to ask for more. When I was selected to serve as deputy budgeteer for the House Republican Caucus, I believed my experience as a CPA and fiscal watchdog could help improve how Illinois manages taxpayer dollars. Instead, we are shut out of budget discussions. When one party controls the process with no input from others, the result is bloated budgets, no transparency, and a growing lack of trust in government. It's no surprise, under Democratic supermajority rule, Illinois ranks among the most corrupt states in the nation, dead last in fiscal transparency, and earns an F from Truth in Accounting. Enough is enough. Our government has to live within its means, especially when families are already stretched thin. That means making responsible spending decisions and identifying real savings, not asking taxpayers to shoulder even more of the burden. We were hopeful last fall with the governor's executive order that would force agencies to identify waste or redundancies within their agency. Instead, when we sought answers about their work through a FOIA request, that request was denied. That's not reform, that's avoidance and political theater using official executive orders. Our budget must be rooted in reality. Taxpayers deserve their money to be spent wisely, not politically. House Republicans are ready to work with anyone serious about delivering real results. Now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Representative Joe Sosnowski.
Thank you very much. Rep. Joe Sosnowski from the 69th District, live in Rockford, which the district extends into McHenry County. Affordability should be our number one topic of discussion here in Springfield to help working families, to help seniors. The policies of this governor and the supermajority from Springfield continues to be one of driving up costs and more spending. Earlier this month, the governor signed the Green New Giveaway into law. This is estimated to drive up working families' electricity bills by well over $100 a year, and it's probably going to continue to escalate from there. The list goes on of other things that they've done. As was mentioned, the bailout to Chicago's mass transit system, billions of dollars. Increases in tolls, over $1 billion on working families who can least afford those costs in order to get to work. Rating downstate road funds, so there's less money to improve downstate transportation. These are extra costs that are being passed on to families and seniors that can't afford it. Meanwhile, already high gas taxes continue to increase each year without any discussion about limiting that. And then in addition, state spending, as was mentioned, has continued to increase 40% over the last 7 years. If these guys try to do any more things to save and create affordability, we're all going to be broke. Last month, we learned that Illinois also opted out of the federal no tax on tips. This is a provision that was signed into law at the federal level, which allows, again, those who are working, sometimes lower income, those who are working to pay for school, sometimes single moms supporting children at home. This is something that the Democrats in Springfield decided to opt out and not pass on to, again, our working families. So this means that a server or a bartender, at the federal level, this may mean that a server or a bartender could exclude up to $25,000 in tips on federal taxation. Again, we opted out of it in Illinois due to the governor's push. This does not help working families. House Republicans have introduced legislation. Myself and several other representatives have introduced a bill to undo this and to allow us to be a part of that and to, again, help those working families to be able to deduct their tips. Cutting taxes on tips and overtime pay would significantly benefit workers in the service industry as well as hourly wage employees across the state that work in manufacturing, maintenance, and skilled trades. Combined, these employees make up a majority of our workforce here in Illinois. We've also filed bills that would save homeowners money on property taxes. I've got several bills that would limit increases for seniors. I've got a duplicate bill that would limit increases for all families and all seniors. These are the types of bills that we need to pass here in Springfield if we're truly serious about affordability. There's also, a lot of talk from Democrats, as I mentioned, talk about affordability. Again, as we mentioned, as the leader mentioned, they're not doing anything about affordability. They're finding more programs to spend more money on, and all that is doing is giving them excuses to increase taxes on everybody here in the state of Illinois. We'll now open it up to any questions.
You mentioned the gas tax. The idea, if I'm not mistaken, was to tie it to inflation. What's wrong with tying that or any other revenue thing to inflation, as opposed to what they used to do and let it sit flat for 20, 30 years?
Well, I just speak for myself. I think we truly needed some funds to go into infrastructure at the time, but as we've seen, the constant and consistent increases have really created a surplus in the road fund. So at a time when we're talking about affordability, why not discuss maybe a temporary freeze? I'm not saying that that's going to be the absolute solution, but I think there's opportunities that we can look at to reduce the daily cost for the average working family.
Yeah, and I'm just going to add concerning the gas tax. There again, that was sold to Illinoisans with the Safer Roads Amendment. And here we just saw that deal was completely broken. Another reason people don't trust government. And that's where they diverted all the dollars from the downstate transportation.
I use less gas than ever. I've got, newer. In fact, when I had a not new car, it still got pretty good mileage, and pretty soon everybody in this room is going to be driving electric cars.
Well, here's another thing on affordability. We're not opting in for, if you were to buy a new car, American made, we're not opting in to have you be able to write off $10,000 of your interest. we're not opting in for that. That puts more money into working, families.
So McCombie says that a lot of the Illinois budget constraints and fiscal shortfalls are actually due to President Trump's tariffs policies and other economic policies at the federal level. And also we saw recently with the child care funding, to Illinois. I'm just wondering, is Trump making your guys' jobs harder in Springfield, trying to budget, around what he's doing at the federal level?
Well, of course, the governor and the Democrats are going to say that, so everything's Trump's fault. However, we are in a better place right now through border enforcement. We have 550,000 people that have come here. That is, we've spent over $2 billion on health care, education, and housing for illegal immigrants. Inflation has gone down 70% under Donald Trump compared to Biden. So certainly we are in a much better place, and the only reason costs are up here in Illinois is because of bills that they continue to pass here. I mean, they spent $8 billion on a fake energy bill just 3 months ago.
There's been some talk about a so-called millionaire's tax or trying to go for a graduate income tax again, perhaps tying that to property tax relief. Is that something that you guys be open to? Again, if it is tied to lowering property taxes, if there, a millionaire's tax could do that, have a swap.
No, because people have already spoke about a graduated income tax, and the states all around us, when we talk about bordering states, are going to a flat tax. And when we're looking at the property tax, well, we can't trust the Democrats on any deals. They just, this last budget, took out the $50 million for property tax relief under the education fund. So, no, we don't trust Democrats to give us any sort of property tax relief, to lower our corporate income tax, to look at holistically reforming. They just want to spend more.
What does a Republican plan for property tax relief look like?
Well, we have, I don't know if you have one, but Dan Ugasti has one. Yeah, you do. You just mentioned it actually in here. Dan Ugasti has one. Certainly us taking away more money from local governments and from our schools with unfunded mandates certainly does nothing to help with property tax relief here. So we could start there. That's where I would start.
And Leader McCombie, obviously at the end of last session, there was that home insurance reform that didn't pass out of the House, gaining strong support in the Senate. That may be pushed again. Where does your caucus stand on the home insurance rates? Should there be reform? Was the last bill too intense against the insurance industry? Also, the speaker told me that he's looking into auto insurance reform. Where do you stand on that?
Well, when the government gets involved in any sort of taking over insurance policies, certainly we're going to be in a worse place. We are opposed to that, and they're lying to the public. They're blaming, them on high costs. They're not looking at why the costs are raising all around the nation. State Farm, for example, he seems to continue to attack State Farm. State Farm has been very public and has wanted to work with the administration, but they refuse to do so. So they want it all. They want control and access to every piece of Illinois' wallet.
Obviously, yesterday we heard from some in your caucus about ideas to reform the Safety Act. Some strong support from our local law enforcement, the sheriff and state's attorney. I brought that idea forth to Speaker Welch, and he said, I'm not sure if there needs to be changes to the Safety Act. He is open to hearing suggestions, but is there really a need for change?
Yeah, that's interesting, and that's exactly what happens with the Democrats. They say one thing one day, and they say something else the other day when they get pushback from somebody within their caucus. The governor said, I'm open to changes, I'm open to fixes. We've seen repeat offenders over and over again hurt people pretty terribly around the state. Lighting somebody on fire certainly would give people pause. And that's where they said, well, maybe we'll fix it. Well, now they're saying, well, maybe it's not. Well, they've already put changes in to fix it 4 times, so that obviously there's some issues. When you have 100 of the 102 sheriffs in the state saying there needs to be fixes, when you have state's attorneys all around the state saying the same thing, I'm not sure why they don't listen to the professionals.
Back to Milo's question, how do you responsibly budget when there is just so much uncertainty about how much federal assistance you're getting? I guess the child care, for example, one day it just evaporates. The federal government says it's not going to come anymore. How do you craft a budget under those circumstances?
Well, I think, I wish our administration would work with the our partners in the federal government to actually look at waste, fraud, and abuse. Here in Illinois, we've already seen some of that. I'm not really quite sure, and I was on the audit commission, and Amy is now. Every year, every audit, or however often they have them, every new director sits at that table and defends the repeat findings by saying, well, I wasn't the director at that time, so this isn't going to, literally every single time. We should be looking within our own agencies. Yes, is it hard with the uncertainty? Absolutely. But the governor should also be open to having these things looked at. He should be doing it, not relying on the federal government to do it or the audit commission. He should be doing it himself, because those funds can be spent in a better place with our most vulnerable instead of like our SNAP rate. Our SNAP rate under the governor has gone from 6% to 11%. That's money that is going to places that it shouldn't be. Why not work to reduce that instead of blaming Donald Trump and the Republicans on the national level saying it's their fault? No. The buck stops with the governor and the majority party. They've had majority rule for 5 decades minus 2 or 3 years. It's time that they actually do something.
How are things going to be different under Governor Bailey or Governor Dabrowski next year?
That's a very good question. I look forward to working with either of them to do just that.
Are you gonna make an endorsement in that race?
No.
While we're focused on affordability, we're kind of in this, will they, won't they, the Bears, what's gonna happen with them? Obviously, I know that you're personally not a Bears fan, but how do you feel about this whole situation here? And what's the caucus going to do when it comes to pilot program or whether it's infrastructure funding? We know that the Bears aren't asking for the public funds, but what's going to happen?
Do we have
with
the
your
Bears
caucus?
jersey? We're going to put it on.
Yeah, wait, hey, way to put me on call here for not being a Bears fan. I rooted for the home team, everybody. No, I think, like we've always been saying in our caucus, public-private partnerships are the way to go. We're hearing that maybe there is an understanding now with Arlington Heights and the Bears, and I certainly hope that is the case. If they do bring forward a mega bill so we can, make that happen, obviously the state's going to be on the hook for infrastructure needs, and I think that's probably appropriate for sure. That's a huge economic driver for the state of Illinois, for Arlington Heights especially. And I'm open to seeing what's going to be in the mega bill. If it is as broad as the last one, certainly that we're not going to be open to that. Taking away local control and giving a blanket for projects is certainly not of interest to our caucus.
Well, in a few weeks, the governor is going to give his budget address, and last year it was $55 billion. What do you think the correct amount is going to be, the correct amount to you?
Well, flat or lower would be ideal. There's been, since I got here in 2017, it was $36 billion for our general revenue fund. So that's certainly something that I hope there's no pork projects. I hope we're not going to fund illegal immigrants. Those would be a couple things. You could do some serious cuts. I hope they don't put another $40 million in Proviso High School either.
How small should it get?
How small should it get? Where it doesn't hurt our most vulnerable.
We obviously had the PBM reform passed last year, is now law, but the speaker said he's looking for other ways to lower prescription drug prices. I know that's an issue for everybody across the board, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. What are ideas that you would like to see done to help lower prices for those that are just trying to get by with their pills?
Well, I'm glad to see Speaker Welch and President Trump are on the same page on that issue. That's another issue we have. Here you just have a lot of local pharmacies, a couple in my district, and probably several in their own, where that funding is supposed to be, passed down to the smaller pharmacies, and they're not even being considered critical care right now. So here again, a deal that's, that's made, a bill that's crafted and passed, and they can't execute it in the way they need to. So I'm always leery when they say they're going to save money. We already see, the $8 billion energy bill that they passed. I don't know how spending $8 billion is going to save money for taxpayers.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.